and welcome back to another episode of Old Iron Talk. We are actually going to be doing two recap videos to end out the season. We'll really end out the year this year. We do want to thank everybody for listening to us and viewing our podcast. We did learn some pretty cool things, that we actually had viewers from 11 different countries, so that was kind of fun, don't you think?
That's crazy.
I think
That
so.
kind of blows my mind.
Me too.
That's really exciting.
It is exciting.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Our top country is the United States. Then we had Canada, United Kingdom, and Australia were our top 4. So that's pretty fun. So yes, we want to give a big thank you and shout out to all of you for viewing and listening to our podcast. This is not something that we are totally comfortable being thrown into, but we have enjoyed it, and we really do enjoy talking to you guys and hearing your stories and getting to share that information with all of you. So we hope you keep tuning back in next year. For this episode and the next one, we're just going to do some recap of episodes this year. We really enjoyed talking with all these people, and we're excited to see who we get to chat with next year. Hi all, and welcome to the Old Iron Talk podcast. I'm your host, Callie Gurton, and today we have special guest Kurt Allman. So we're going to start talking about Old Iron Garage. For those of you who haven't heard of it, it is a new website that Kurt likes to reference to as Tractor Disney World. Kurt, what was your thoughts behind Old Iron Garage?
Well, it was something kicked around for years, and I thought that me personally, I had been to the ends of every tractor website on the internet, and I didn't have new stuff to look at, and I don't know, Facebook, it's got all the drama that goes along with that, so sometimes I get tired of that, and if I was researching a tractor, it seemed like I always had to go to 6 different websites to try to figure something out. And so I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if, we could just put everything on one website and you could research stuff and you had a little community. Maybe you got, buy sell ads, classified ads and things like that.
Yeah. And okay, this has been in the works for what, about 2.5 to 3 years? When you guys originally started
probably,
it?
yeah, okay. Yeah, I would say at least 3 years.
Okay. Very cool.
But a big boost was we were able to use content from C.H. Wendell's books.
That has helped tremendously, yes.
So that gave a huge foundation for us to work off of.
Yes. All right, so in addition to Old Iron Garage, we wanted to kind of tie this into why Old Iron Talk got started. I know, Kurt, you've kind of batted back and forth for a while now, starting a podcast. And Miranda and I got this in works, I don't know, what'd you say, a couple months ago?
Well, or December.
Was it December?
Yeah, December.
I couldn't remember.
So really kind of the basics of that deal was I would rather talk about tractors than eat.
Yes.
But I am not even close to being smart enough to figure all this podcast TikTok of Instagrammer stuff out. And so you guys have picked up the ball and carried all the weight on this, and now
we're here.
And we can talk tractors until everybody just kind of, the eyes roll back in their head and they fall over.
And they're tired of it.
Yeah, that's right.
So we started this with the idea of, like Kurt said, he really likes to talk tractors, but in a way to incorporate Old Iron Garage as well, we kind of want to tie in a model of Show Me Your Shed. So what the idea is, we could either go, depending on how far away it is, to somebody's collection, tour it, do a live podcast, or we have recently figured out how to do a Zoom call. So they could be on Zoom, we'd be talking to them, walking through their collection, asking them questions, and then showing that through our podcast to our viewers.
They'd walk through their shed and show their stuff, and we'd go, stop!
Exactly.
Oh my God!
What do you got in the corner?
What is that?
So that's kind of a background on Old Iron Garage, Old Iron Talk, and we are very excited for the show to continue.
Yeah. So going forward, what you're gonna do, kind of set up a schedule on the podcast, and then they'll be available on.
We're going to stream them on YouTube. We'll have them on Spotify. We're going to pretty much stream them everywhere that you get your podcasts. They should be streamed. So Apple, whichever you listen.
And even in some way that old guys can figure it out and
exactly.
get their tractor talk fixed.
Yes.
whatever.
Whatever fix they need. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so what in the world even got you interested in
Well,
in all of this?
it's a wild story, I guess. Okay, so Miranda, if you want to pull up the picture of my grandpa, actually. Originally, I'm from Geneseo, Illinois, which is about 3 hours northwest of here, and moved down here about 2.5 years ago now. Yeah, about 2.5 years ago. For those of you that have heard of him, my grandpa was Ronald Miller, and he collected.
Who, in another life, when I was like a child,
Yeah.
I started a magazine, an antique tractor
Mhm.
magazine. So
Yeah.
actually started at my end of my junior year of high school, I think. And like one of the like legend people in the hobby was Ron Miller. He
Yeah.
was the oil pull guy.
He
And,
was.
and so like anytime, I mean, I was a pup,
Yeah.
I mean, I was still learning, and oil pulls were like this mythic, magical beast, that I had maybe only seen one in real life at
Yeah.
that point. So when I had oil pull questions, like I called him, not often. We
Yeah.
talked, I don't know, half a dozen times, but he was instrumental in like the club.
He was,
Yeah.
yes. Very in the ATA show that's up there. He's very actually I don't remember the year off the top of my head, but they used to do a show on my grandparents' farm. And it was like $1 a day to get in, or $1 a weekend. I can't remember what. And then kids 18 and under were free. And that's where one of the shows actually originated, was on
I'll
their
be
farm.
danged.
Yep.
I'll be danged.
But running off of you saying he was the oil pull guy, one of my favorite stories since I've worked here is Mike Sporrell. When I first met him,
Uh-huh.
it was at the Lake Key Live sale. And we were like sitting at the hotel, and he came up to me and he asked like who I was, where I was from. And I said, I'm originally from Geneseo. And he goes, oh, do you know Ron Miller? And I said, yeah, I think I've heard of him. And Brian Pulse was sitting next to me, and he starts cracking up. And Mike goes, what? And he's like, that's her grandfather. He's like, oh, I've called him quite a bit, because I can't remember what he said he was restoring, but one time
Well, he's got a couple lightweight oil
yes,
pulls.
he
Yeah.
does. And I don't remember which one he said he was working on. But he said he had called my grandpa and actually drove down there to get a part from him. So he said,
for crying out loud.
So that's one of my favorite things here, is just hearing the stories and people that had met him and how he helped them, because he definitely was known as the oil pull guy.
Oh, yeah.
That is for sure.
So, like, what got him into oil pulls?
Well, actually, when he first got out of the Army, he wanted an Avery. Now I can't quote
Oh my
myself.
God, he could have been the Avery guy.
He could have been the Avery guy. So his dad had always had an Avery, so he was looking for an Avery when he first got out of the Army. Couldn't find the one he wanted, and he had a friend call him one day and said, hey, found this oil pull, you gotta go look at it. So he did, and it was the first tractor he bought when he was first married, first out of the military, and that's just how his love started. He said, in one of the articles that was written about him, it's quoted that he had said that he decided to stick with Rumley because he thought it would help keep his collection smaller and under control.
How'd that work out?
Well, not real good.
Yeah, not real good.
But so he started with a 2040 oil pull, was the first one he purchased. And I still remember my grandma always tells us he added like a little car seat to it. It's just a wooden seat. Could not be comfortable if you were a child. But he would always take like my dad and his brothers out if they were throwing a fit at night, and that's how he'd put them to sleep, was on the oil pull.
Riding around on the oil
Yep.
pull.
Yep.
Ah, that's awesome.
And that tractor still has that little child seat to this day.
Oh,
so
for crying out loud.
Yep.
So let's see now, he had a B?
he does. Yep, we do still have a
Wow.
B.
Wow.
So yeah, that's pretty unique
Yeah,
and
that's
special.
kind of the
It is.
creme de la creme of the oil pull.
Yep.
And everybody, because you can't even find B's
No,
anymore.
you can't.
So, and E? He's got an
He has
E
an
too?
E, yep.
Wow, yeah.
13 in total. is
13
what-
oil
yep.
pulls. That's pretty impressive.
Yep, and then we have a Rumley 6 too.
Cool.
So yeah. But one story that I love to tell is, Miranda, if you wouldn't mind flipping to the Smithsonian picture of the restored oil pull. So back in 1991, I wasn't born yet, and I'm sad I wasn't born yet, but I hear all the stories. He was contacted.
I was actually
in-
kind of old by then.
Well,
still remember I could tell you stories about the 90s.
Yeah. I was just barely born in the 90s, but that's okay. But my grandpa was contacted and he was asked to restore a 2040 for the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C.
Really? I
Yep.
did not know that.
Yeah. So that's this picture that we have pulled up here. That's the tractor he restored. And then they actually donated this threshing machine too. So that was in the Smithsonian as well.
Wow.
Yep. They're both back in the archives now, but they were on display for many years out there in DC. And actually in 91, they had like a threshing show on the grounds of
Oh,
the
yeah.
Capitol. And so they went out to that and they got to meet the vice president and it was a big deal. And they had a live threshing show out there and they ran this tractor and the
That
thresher.
is awesome. I did not
Yeah.
know that. You know, we've sold stuff for the Smithsonian
Yeah.
and to the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
And their collection is like, what you see at the Smithsonian is like, I don't know, tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 10% or what it is.
Yeah.
But their archives, which that's where that's at.
Where that's at. Yep.
Because they rotate stuff all the time.
Yes, they do.
It's I was in the aircraft archive one
Oh,
time,
cool.
and it was like that scene in Indiana Jones, at the end where they put the Ark of the Covenant up on the shelf and then they pan back and it's this huge massive
Yeah.
warehouse. That's
Yeah.
that's what it looked like.
That's
It
very
was
cool.
wild.
Yeah. My grandma has gone once and she got to see it in the archives, but so that was pretty cool.
That is
Yeah.
that's quite the honor.
It
I mean,
is.
that's super cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, back to how I kind of got into this. Miranda, if you want to switch to the other images. So, obviously, I grew up around them my whole life. There's pictures from literally when I was a very little baby with me and my grandparents and brothers all around the tractors. We've gone to shows. We still take them to shows. One of my brothers is really good with them too. He tries to like restore or redo one of them every winter,
Yeah.
which is kind of what my grandpa did too, because he's taken over the family farm, and my grandpa was the same way. He'd work on them in the winter because that's the slow time. So this year he was actually working on the Rumley 6 to get that one kind of going and running better. But we go, and the AETA show in Geneseo, that's the big show, so we still go to that one, which he had helped start, and just have fun with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Annika was the 2021 Chevron Tractor Restoration Grand Champion, and she won with her 1948 Alice Chalmers WC. So we were going to share some pictures with you guys of her journey with that, but can you kind of give us a background? How did you end up with that tractor?
So that was the second year that I competed in that competition. We have a local competition around here that mimics and parallels nationals. And so they saw that competition many years ago and said, that is the coolest thing. We want to implement it around here. And they got it going. So high school students can take a tractor. They have a year to compete and finish that restoration. And then at the end, after the local one, you're pushed into nationals. And so I had, on a whim, grabbed my best friend and was like, I don't know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing. Let's have fun and try this. And so we both jumped into a full restoration of a 1957 Ford 600. And after that first year, we saw nationals. It's like, what the heck? Let's give it a shot. And we went in, and every question under the sun, I stood there. It's like, holy cow. I don't know what I got myself into here. This is another level, like passing over my head by miles. And so I came back around that next year. It's like, I started now. I can't stop. And I was like, you know what? I want to do it for nationals this year. I want to make it far, and I want to be able to answer those questions. I didn't like being stumped and that I couldn't answer those and didn't know what they were talking about. And so I went to, there's a yard around here, the local competition. If you don't have a tractor or have access to one, they will give you one for free. But you sign a contract. If you don't finish, that tractor goes back to the yard. And so it puts a lot of pressure on you, but it also keeps you in check. And I went up to that yard and I had a few choices. I had like a Ford, a diesel Ford, and a Jubilee, and a few others to choose from. It's like, I just did a Ford. I don't think I really want to get into that again. I'll do one eventually, but like I want something different. And this tractor was sitting in the corner, and it had this big sticker sitting on the side of the hood, and it said Alex Madonna Construction. And around here, we have something called Madonna Inn, and Alex was the founder of that. And he had construction up and down the coast, and then that hotel itself was for his wife. And so I was like, you know what? This has good history, and it looks like a challenge. And I had every single judge in that competition tell me, do not take that tractor. And one thing about me is if you tell me not to do something, I'm going to go out of my way and do it just to prove you wrong. And sometimes that's a good thing, and I'm learning when to be stubborn or not. But I took that tractor on full force, and it really did put up a fight, but it was worth it.
That's awesome. That's an awesome history and story behind that in general. And I think that's incredible too, that you guys have the option to go to the yard and they like kids just pick out a tractor. I know a lot of places people don't have those resources and options. So that's incredible that you guys have that. Out of the brands that you have restored thus far, is there a brand that you have found easier to work with or easier to work on?
I'd say Allis-Chalmers are very simple, so it makes them fairly easy. But with that being said, for some reason, at least around here, Allis-Chalmers are like thrashed. Like people ran them into the ground because they would work so hard. They were good tractors, and they still are. So I've always had the most problems with them, just because you go to fix one thing and you're like, are you kidding me? Because about 6 other things need to be fixed. And then after those 6, there's more, and it just keeps going. So they've given me troubles, but they're fairly simple. The Ford that I worked on, I love that thing because if you maybe don't take the best care of it, it usually just starts right up. And we had very, very low compression, and that thing was firing for us. And so after fixing that, it's wonderful. And I've seen that in the Farmall that I've got here. They both were very hardy and just, you look at it, you can understand how it works because there's very few things that's all exposed, and you fix the small little tune-ups and you're good to go.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so we've got Graham Howden now here with us at Classic Green. And is this the first Classic Green you've attended?
No, I came over to the first one in 2019 at Nebraska, Grand Island, Nebraska. I have been over to a number of shows prior to that, but this is the second Classic Green for me.
How did you get into the John Deere community?
It goes back to I could say a good year in 1963 when I came along, and my father was farming, and he used to get affected by diesel fumes, and he went around all the agents in New Zealand at the time to see who would supply what we call a petrol tractor. Up here you call it a gas, and our local John Deere agent were prepared to indent a John Deere 2010 gas tractor for him. It was the only brand new tractor he ever owned, probably the worst model he could have bought, but that's how it all started. So we were farming as I was growing up, and my father ended up with all John Deere equipment, which was a bit unusual in New Zealand because we, being so tied to the Commonwealth, had a lot of British machinery and local New Zealand made implements, and American equipment got very expensive in New Zealand. So it was a bit different to be like that, and we saw very few John Deeres come through in the 60s and 70s, and then they really started making a comeback in about the 1980s.
Okay.
So through that connection, my dad passed away when I was quite young. I was only 11, and we had a clearing sale. All the machinery got sold. Then once I got through school, I wasn't going to get involved with machinery at all. I was going to go down the vehicle line of things, but I started finding one or two rare John Deeres that got to New Zealand, and the first one I found was an AO Streamlined. It was in a children's playground, and we since know that there were only 2 of them imported to New Zealand new. I have the remains of the second one as well. So that got me starting collecting the rare John Deeres that got to New Zealand.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's an awesome story too, so thank you for sharing that with us. All right, so now we're talking with Marvin Steinbaker, and Marvin's been collecting lawn and garden tractors. Can you kind of give us a background? When did you start doing that?
Probably about 2008. And I started with my dad had a wheel horse that he bought when I was in high school and still had it, and that kind of got my interest going.
Okay. That's kind of funny and ironic. My brother actually, when he was younger and in high school, I don't really know what his fascination was with like the lawn and garden tractors, but wheel horse was one of them, and he had quite a few when we were growing up. So that's kind of funny.
And I still have his.
Do you?
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. All right, so what was your like dream purchase? Have you made that?
Yes. Didn't know it at the time, but it is now. I got a tractor called a Farmhand.
Okay.
It was built by Jacobson, 1 year only that we know of, and I was the second person to find it, or to find one. There was one in Lyle Dumont's Oliver Museum,
Okay.
And a friend found this in a fence row. He was believe it or not, a John Deere collector. He wanted the 7-horse Kohler motor off of it.
Okay.
And when he got it, he figured out it looked different and strange. So he got a hold of a couple other people, and they figured out what it was. So then he decided he didn't want to tear it up.
Wow.
So he contacted me, and I said, sure. I didn't really know anything about it. And since then, been a very good purchase. And right now, we only know of about maybe 20 of them that are out there.
Wow, that's
I'm
amazing.
sure there's probably more, but you know, it's and this has been for, I guess I've had mine about 6 years now.
Okay. Do you know overall how many they've produced?
That's the other thing, we can't find out anything on them,
Okay.
and we can only find out they were built, as far as we know, 1 year and one size.
Wow, that's incredible. That
Yeah.
is definitely a unique find then,
Yes.
for sure. That's
Yes.
exciting. So how many do you currently have in your collection?
Probably about 30.
30?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have like a mix of brands?
Yes.
Or brand? Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Okay.
I got Farmhand, I have Oliver,
Okay.
I have Minneapolis Moline, I have White, the earlier whites, which are the light blue. I have a Jacobson, the Wheel Horse, and I have tractors that are called Springfield that were built in Springfield, Ohio. But we only have, they made a lot of different smaller ones, but these were just a certain, like a 7-year.
Okay.
They look like a small wheel horse, the early wheel horses we have. I said the Minneapolis I have some odd tractors. I have, it's called a Farm Crest, which was built by Springfield, but it was sold at Gamble's
Oh, okay.
hardware store. And I have a tractor that was built by Springfield, well, 2 of them that was sold by Montgomery Wards.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm kind of with the Springfield background with them.
Yeah.
And you don't see, and they only made the 2 for Montgomery Wards, but they did make a few others for the Gambles. That was the Farm Crest.
Okay. Now, do you restore these?
Yeah, well, let's just say probably about 2/3 of them. Some of them are in good enough shape not to restore.
To restore?
Yeah.
Right. And you do that work yourself?
I do some of it. I have a couple good friends that do the painting, and I always tell people I'm not a mechanic. I'm a parts replacer, and I do the rattle can. You know, some of the smaller anything that, like my Farmhand, I had somebody else do it
I don't blame you
for
on
it turned
that,
out really
yeah.
look nice.
Yep, I don't blame you on that at all. Now to sit down with Travis Wibben and his son Seth, and Travis has been a part of Classic Green and very strong part of implementing everything that goes on here at Classic Green. So you guys have probably been pretty much everywhere, I would imagine, because you're pretty busy. But is there anything here this year that really stands out to either of you?
There's an 8850 and a Streeter Dion Duels. Those are the
Okay.
two,
Yes, I did see
my
that
2
too.
big ones. So I'm on Facebook getting ready to load them up.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of a John Deere D, so I'm in heaven this year. We got 56 Ds here. We've got 4 of the early large flywheel spokers. We've got at least 1 nickel. We've got, I believe, 15 spokers. Yeah, I'm in heaven. And every day, a couple times a day, we start them all up, just walking through, listening to those guys. Yeah.
Do you like tractors that are restored, or do you prefer the ones that are still original?
So I'm a big fan of the person's passion, and so I like both. If I have to prefer, I like them in their street clothes so that you can get them out in the field and get them dirty.
So Travis, how did you kind of start to get involved with Classic Green?
Well, so as I mentioned, I have a couple early farm owls. So I really kind of got really going in the hobby with an F20, and I still have that. And you know, I don't just like something. I mean, I really like, if I have a tractor, I like the owner's manual. I like the implements that pull and that kind of thing. And so I was never finding an organization that actually had more than just the one thing. You know, the club would be focused on this item or that item or that item. And I said, well, why not everything? And I found a whole bunch of people, you know, us that started up Classic Green, that had that same mentality is why can't we have a plow and memorabilia and toys and tractors here all at the same show?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay. So as we said in the intro, we're here with the Ladies of Steam. So we have Jen and Nicole, and we're going to kind of start off here and get a little background from them. Where did you guys grow up? How did you get interested in STEAM? Kind of let us know what became that led you to Ladies of Steam.
Yes, so I'll start. So my background is I actually grew up on a dairy farm in rural Minnesota. So my background, my roots go deep with agriculture, being sixth generation on our family dairy farm. And so it was something that my grandparents brought me to Rolog when I was 11 months old, and I attended every year. And it was just something that like I couldn't get enough of. So when I got older, I started becoming involved myself because, you know, growing up on a dairy farm, there's not really extra time or anything like that. You're pretty dedicated to the farm. So I would say my early teenage years, I had a family take me under their wing and showed me a lot about steam engines. In fact, in Miniature Land, the Hill family. And then I just had a lot of several mentors throughout that growing up, and that continued to fuel my passion for agriculture, where I actually ended up getting a degree in agricultural engineering to where I'm at today. So, and as far as Ladies of Steam, I'll let Jen go talk a little bit about herself, and then we can discuss how Ladies of Steam got about.
Perfect.
Yeah, quite a different story here. So I've not been a lifer in the STEAM world by any means. My family started attending shows around, I would think maybe 2002. We were told for the big experience in Minnesota that we should go to the Western Minnesota Steam Threshers Reunion, which you heard Nicole refer to as Rolog. We'll probably refer to it as Rolog throughout, kind of as we communicate about that. But so we did that the following year. My dad and brother then attended STEAM school the year after at Rolog, and then my mom and I followed that. And then we got our STEAM licenses in 2005. So as a whole family, then we all got our STEAM licenses. And we learned STEAM through primarily operating a 28 horsepower Minneapolis steam traction engine that was owned by Dr. Jerry Parker. And then a few years later, we purchased that engine to become our own family engine. And then aside from that, very, very different. In my professional life, I'm a clinical psychologist.
That is awesome. And I love too how both of you have completely opposite backgrounds. One of you was kind of in agriculture growing up around it, and the other one wasn't. So it's awesome that this has brought you both together too. That's great.
Creating Ladies of Steam really started with a discussion that Nicole and I were having a girls' night. We were hanging out and just talking about our enjoyment of the hobby and noticing that, you know, our home show at Rolog actually has a really significant female presence with STEAM. So other shows might have, you know, few to maybe even none for you know, lady representation or women that you see running on STEAM. And so we really just thought to create a pretty simple platform, like a Facebook page where, you know, women who enjoy this hobby can have a common space, share pictures, share stories, get connected, meet up at other shows. Within a week, it went international. And Nicole, I think you have a really cool statistic that we were talking about recently on who's participating in the page that we have.
Yeah. So as far as our page, I'll back up just a little bit. Like what Jen was saying, we had like a girls' night one night, and it was just like, we realized that, you know, it was so much more enjoyable, like when we went to shows together. And so it was like, how can we network with other women? And we thought, like, because we traveled through shows throughout the Midwest, and it was like, well, if we create this Facebook page, maybe we can network and connect with other women, see when they're going to this show or that show. We can plan accordingly. And like in a week, it went international. And it was like, what what monster did we just create? And so it just went gangbusters. But it really came from the desire of just enjoying attending a show with Jen. And it was like, hey, let's make this table bigger. And we never imagined that it would get as large as it is, with now over 12,000 followers just on our Facebook. I think we're over 2,000 on Instagram right now. And it was really interesting too. The statistic that Jen had brought up was like our age range from like 25 to 45 is about 60% of our audience. So we really have an audience engaged to keeping this hobby alive for generations.
That's great too that you guys were able to do that. Okay, now, how long has it been around? When did you start the group?
We started it in 2015.
2015. Okay. And in a week it went international. That's amazing. Okay, so can you kind of share with us kind of the connection you've made? Have you guys traveled out of the States with the group? Do you have people from out of like the country that have traveled here? What kind of connections have you made with it?
Yeah, so that's I guess one of the favorite things about this group that we created is just the relationships and networking that's expanded. So a few years ago, Jen and I were invited to the Great Dorset Steam Fair, which at that time was the world's largest steam show when they were having their 50th. And so we had the opportunity to meet many other women in the UK as well as throughout Europe and globally. And some of those relationships we've been staying in connection with. In fact, actually one of the ladies, Zara, she had came to the US just this last fall. And so we did a little steam tour when she was here. And that relationship is just continuing. We stay in contact on a regular basis. So the friendships have really fostered with this organization.
Well, that's great too. Yeah. The more it seems like with like any organization, any group in this kind of hobby, the connections you make last you a lifetime, and the knowledge that you instill in each other. I think that's one of the things that's so important about groups like you've created and groups for like the pre-30, the muscle era, all the different eras. It's what you're instilling in future generations as well. So that's awesome that you guys have done this. Okay, do you guys have a mission or mission statement for Ladies of Steam? And if so, what is it?
So essentially how I view it really is this is to keep history alive through encouragement, connection, and really tactile experiences. And we, if we want, we can talk about what we do for an event for the tactile experience, but there's so many different places where you can walk around and look at things, but not necessarily get your hands on, get your hands dirty. Pull the throttle, see what it's like, check the water levels, and learn some of those pieces of just a real basic introduction to steam. And so I really like and encourage anyone who's running steam to take those questions and answer it, and go out. And if you see kids walking by, ask them if they have any questions or if they want to see the inside of the firebox. So being that person to start the conversations to really keep it moving, keep people interested, or get people interested who are just like looking at it from a distance, and ask them if they want to hop up on the platform on the back and take a look at it from the engineer's view, ride around for, you might be able to walk faster, but if you want to take a quick ride, hop on and enjoy it and make it a real experience.
That's awesome. I think it's amazing too that you guys will take the step to make the first connection, because I know like when I was little and growing up, I told you guys like my family owns a steam engine. I always thought it was intimidating, because you're an engineer of that machine. And I've always thought steam was more intimidating than anything else. So I think it's great that you're willing to make that first step, because I feel like people that do not grow up around it, people that have no idea about it, they're not going to like be the ones that go over there and they're like, well, maybe I'll ask them about the firebox, or, oh, maybe I'll ask them about how the pressure changes and how that works. So I think that's awesome that you guys take the time to set up at shows and do that and make those connections. So that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
At our home show, one of my favorite days is Sunday with our engine, and people are tired. The show's been going on since Sunday. Families camping, the kids are tired. You're walking everywhere. So we always take a Sunday afternoon run with our engine down to the campground and just give kids rides.
That's awesome.
We meet them on the corner. We go up, 100 feet, drop them
Mhm.
off, get the next group of kids or adults and parents, and just go around and around the campgrounds, just giving people rides, bringing some of it to them when we're tired.
Yeah.
And taking a break and doing that. We've had people now waiting for, not necessarily waiting, but they've been a repeat person sitting on that corner waiting for our engine to come down for years. And just fostering getting that steam bug to everybody.
Mhm. That is awesome. And kids definitely love it. I know watching them at shows, they love getting in the coal box. They love getting dirty in the coal. I know they love getting rides on those steam engines. So that's awesome. Well, I thank you guys for coming on here today. I really enjoyed talking with you. It was great learning about your hobby, what you guys do, how you got involved, and we'd love to have you on again sometime if you'd want.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a
Yeah.
pleasure being able to share. Thank you for giving us this opportunity and reaching out. We love keeping this history alive and the relationships and connections, and we appreciate you giving us some time today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Again, we would like to thank everyone for listening to our podcast. We encourage everyone to still check out our website, oldirongarage.com, and connect with other collectors. We would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we hope you tune back in next year for another great season of Old Iron Talk. We are very thankful for all the guests that have joined us, and don't forget to reach out to us if you have any interest in being in an upcoming episode. You can reach us at info@oldirongarage.com. Again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.